Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. It happened at a backyard gathering hosted by our friends, Gloria and Travis. They were the type of couple who loved having people over. My girlfriend Alice and I went every year. It was supposed to be easy, friendly, nothing dramatic. But that night, while I stood by the grill with a pair of tongs in my hand, everything changed. I was flipping chicken skewers when I heard Alice's laugh drift from the patio table behind me. That sharp, high-pitched laugh she used when she wanted people to notice her. I didn't even have to turn around. I knew the sound. It wasn't genuine amusement. It was performance. Her friends sat around her. I heard my name and paused. "Scott treats me better than Nick ever will," Alice said. Scott was her so-called best friend from work, the guy she swore was like a brother. I'd never believed that, but I kept quiet. It hit quiet for half a second. Then the group burst out laughing. My heart didn't race, didn't break. It just went still. I kept staring at the food, pretending to listen to the sizzle. That sound helped drown out the next few seconds. The laughter, the whispers, one of them saying, "He's right there." I didn't turn around, didn't drop anything. I breathed slowly until my hands stopped trembling. I'd been patient for months while Alice defended her closeness with Scott, telling me I was insecure. Hearing her say that and laughing about it with people who didn't respect me was like finally reading a diagnosis you already suspected. The problem wasn't my jealousy. The problem was that I'd been living in someone else's script. A boyfriend paying bills, cooking meals, while another man got the spotlight. When I brought the food to the table, Alice smiled at me like nothing had happened. "Smells great, babe," she said lightly. I smiled back, calm and polite. "Hope you enjoy it," I said. That night, driving home, she talked about how fun the evening was. I nodded, already deciding what came next. After that night, something in me changed quietly. I didn't argue with Alice anymore. When she mentioned Scott, I didn't sigh or roll my eyes. I just nodded and said things like, "That's nice. You two have fun." It threw her off. The tension she used to feed on was gone. At first, she seemed relieved. Then, she got comfortable. Scott started coming around more often, dropping by with takeout, sitting on our couch, laughing at her stories like they were stand-up routines. I'd pass through the room, offer a polite greeting, and go back to my office. One evening, while they were watching a movie, I heard her giggle through the wall. I opened a spreadsheet on my laptop and started typing. In one column, I listed every bill I paid: rent, electricity, groceries, and insurance. In the other, I added the things Scott brought: a pizza, a coffee, and a candle. The difference looked like a joke, but it helped me stay grounded. I wasn't crazy. I was keeping score in reality, not emotions. The more distant I became, the more she tried to perform warmth. She'd cook dinner once a week, compliment my shirts, and ask about my day. I played along. I smiled and never brought up what I heard. "Scott invited me to that trivia night next weekend," she said one night, scrolling her phone. "That sounds fun," I replied. "You're okay with that?" she asked, testing me. "Of course. You deserve to relax." She smiled, thinking she'd won some invisible battle. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't surrendering. I was clearing the stage for the finale. By the third week, she'd fully dropped her guard. Scott was texting her constantly. I kept my peace, made small talk, paid bills, and waited. The trap wasn't ready yet, but the players were moving exactly where they needed to be. Gloria and Travis announced their annual charity karaoke night, the kind of event our friend group looked forward to every year. It wasn't fancy, just a rented hall, open bar, and a few people recording clips for social media. Alice lit up when she heard about it. "Scott and I should perform together," she said at breakfast. "We'd kill it." I stirred my coffee and smiled. "You should. You both love attention. Perfect match." She grinned, missing the edge in my tone. "You're not mad?" "Why would I be mad? It's karaoke, not an engagement party." The plan came together piece by piece. Alice spent the next week rehearsing with Scott. They'd meet after work and practice songs in our living room while I pretended to be buried in emails. I watched them laugh, bump shoulders, exchange looks that said more than words ever could. Every detail confirmed Scott wasn't just a friend, and Alice wasn't innocent. When she asked what I planned to wear, I said, "Probably something dark. I don't want to upstage the stars of the show." She laughed and kissed my cheek. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of guilt. By the time the karaoke night arrived, everything was set. Alice and Scott had their duet ready, both dressed like they were auditioning for attention. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused, calm, the kind of calm that comes right before a storm you've been building yourself. The karaoke hall buzzed with noise and lights. Alice looked radiant in her silver dress, and Scott wore a matching tie. Coincidence, according to her. I kept a polite smile on my face. When it was their turn, they jumped up together like some rehearsed duo. She waved to the crowd. He threw an arm around her shoulders. The room cheered as they started their song. I watched from the side with Travis and Gloria, who had no idea they were about to witness something much bigger than karaoke. "Look at them," Gloria said, laughing. "They're stealing the show." "Yeah," I said quietly. "They always do." When the song ended, applause filled the room. Scott bowed dramatically. Alice curtsied, flushed with pride. Then, as they stepped off stage, I caught the bartender's eye and signaled for another round. Every time Scott's drink ran low, I made sure it was topped off. He was loud by the second hour, arrogant by the third. Around midnight, the DJ called for a couple's dance. Alice tried to wave it off, but Scott tugged her hand playfully. "Come on," he said, slurring a little. "Just one dance." I stayed near the crowd, acting uninterested. They moved closer, her laugh uncertain now. Scott leaned in, whispering something in her ear. Then, right there in front of everyone, he went for it. Hands on her waist, lips aiming for her mouth. She froze, eyes wide, and shoved him back hard. The crowd gasped. Cameras kept rolling. Scott stumbled, muttering, "I thought," but she stepped away, shaking her head in disbelief. I didn't move toward her. I didn't need to. I'd given her space, exactly what she always asked for. The silence that followed was perfect. The drive home was dead quiet. Alice sat rigid in the passenger seat, arms crossed. When we pulled into the driveway, she spoke first. "You just stood there," she snapped. "He tried to kiss me, Nick, in front of everyone, and you did nothing." I turned off the engine. "You said you wanted space. I was giving it to you." "That's not funny," she said sharply, voice cracking. "You embarrassed me." Everyone saw. I got out of the car and walked inside. She followed. "Do you even care?" she demanded. I looked at her calmly. Not the way I used to. That stopped her cold. She frowned, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" I opened a drawer and pulled out a piece of mail. The lease renewal. I set it on the counter. "It means I heard you, Alice. At Gloria's. When you told your friends that Scott treats you better than I ever will." Her eyes widened, and all the color drained from her face. "That was a joke," she said quickly. "You're taking that out of context." "No," I said. "I'm taking it for what it was. The truth you didn't think I'd hear." She shook her head. "You planned this. The karaoke, the drinks, everything. You let that happen." "I didn't," I replied evenly. "I just stopped protecting you from your own choices." She sank into a chair, silent for a moment, then whispered, "So that's it?" "That's it," I said. "I already told the landlord I'm not renewing. I found another place. You've got 60 days to figure out what you want to do." She stared at the lease like it was written in another language. Then her voice broke. "You're really leaving?" "I already left," I said. "Tonight just made it official." I went to bed. She didn't follow. The next morning, Alice didn't speak to me. She moved around the kitchen in silence, eyes red, hands shaking as she made coffee. My phone buzzed with clips from the karaoke night spreading through our friend group. Someone had uploaded the video to social media. The caption read, "When the duet goes wrong." By noon, everyone had seen it. Scott's drunken face leaning in, Alice's shocked expression, the awkward silence that followed. The comments were brutal. I didn't post or respond. I didn't need to. The video spoke for itself. Scott disappeared after the video spread. He'd been the one leaning in for the kiss, and everyone saw it. No one bought his "I was drunk" excuse. People started calling him the predator behind his back. Friends stopped inviting him to anything, and his co-workers unfollowed him online. Within a week, he deleted his accounts and vanished. His name turned into a quiet punchline whispered at dinners. Alice's phone kept lighting up with pity texts and awkward apologies. By the end of the week, even her closest friends had backed off. She finally broke the silence one night. "I can't believe people are talking about it like that," she said, voice small. I looked up from the laptop. That's what happens when private games turn public. She glared at me. You wanted this. No, I said, closing the screen. I just stopped pretending. A few days later, she left a handwritten letter on my desk, pages of apologies and promises. She said she'd made mistakes, that Scott manipulated her, that she wanted to fix things. I read it twice, then placed a sticky note above that said, "Too late." After that, she started unraveling. She stayed in bed most days. I kept to my side of the apartment, working, sleeping on the couch. The place grew quiet, almost peaceful, except for the sound of her crying behind the door at night. The funny thing about silence is how loud it can get when someone's pride finally collapses. She used to brag that her best friend treated her better. Now she had no best friend, no audience, and no idea who she was without either. And I didn't have to lift a finger. In the next few weeks, reality started catching up with her. The bills arrived, and I stopped covering her half. That was when the panic began to show. She started selling a few of her things online: designer bags, shoes, jewelry. One day, she stood by the doorframe, her arms folded tight against her chest. "So that's it," she said. "You're really moving out." "I told you I was," I replied. "Nothing's changed." Her voice broke. "You're so cold. You set me up. You made me look like a fool." I turned to face her. "I didn't make you look like anything. You did that yourself. I just let the truth breathe for once." She slammed her hand against the door. "You wanted revenge." "No," I said calmly. "I wanted peace. Revenge was just the side effect." That night, she tried one last time to reach for something that wasn't there anymore. "Can't we at least talk?" she whispered. "There's nothing left to talk about," I said. "You bragged that another man treated you better. Now you know what that feels like, being treated like you're optional." Her eyes filled, but no words came out. Over the next week, she started packing slowly, each day quieter than the one before. Her friends stopped visiting. Her phone barely buzzed. When she finally told me she'd moved back to her parents' house, her voice was flat. "I guess this is what I deserve," she said softly. I didn't answer. Some truths don't need words. The morning I moved out was clear. I loaded the last box into the truck and looked back at the apartment one final time. Alice sat on the couch, surrounded by half-packed boxes. She looked smaller somehow, like the walls had closed in around her. "Do you need help with anything before I go?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, you've helped enough." Her voice wasn't angry anymore, just hollow. I nodded once, closed the door behind me, and didn't look back. My new place was across town, a quiet building with a balcony that faced the park. The first night there, I cooked dinner, nothing fancy. I hadn't realized how peaceful eating in silence could be. A week later, Gloria texted me a link. It was the karaoke video again, now trending in some local thread. The comments were relentless. People dissected every frame, the moment Scott leaned in, the look on Alice's face. I watched it once, then deleted the link. I didn't need to see it anymore. The story had already played out exactly the way it was supposed to. Word got around that Alice had moved back in with her parents. She wasn't working much. Most of her friends had drifted away, tired of her excuses and self-pity. I heard she still blamed one misunderstanding for how everything fell apart. Maybe that made it easier for her to live with. As for me, I stopped checking her pages. I reconnected with old friends, started going out again, and rediscovered what quiet actually felt like. One Sunday evening, I stood on the balcony and thought about that night in Gloria's backyard. The laughter, the comment, the turning point. Alice bragged that her best friend treated her better than I ever would. She was right. I would never treat someone that carelessly. She wanted an audience. Now she has silence. Thank you for watching.